What's going on, bottom line viewers? It's Mitch here with your first round NFL draft grades. In this video, I will grade every single pick from the 2021 NFL draft in the first round, giving you my thoughts and analysis on your team's pick or picks from the first day of the NFL draft. These grades will include trade compensation, value of the pick, including my analysis and thoughts on the player you selected. Before I give you those draft grades, make sure that you do spike the like button, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more BLV just like this. Also, let me know in the comment section below the draft grade you would give your favorite team this season. Let's start right at the top with the letter grades. First pick overall was, of course, Trevor Lawrence. We knew it was going to happen, and it in fact happened. No surprises here in the top two at all. Trevor Lawrence gets an A from me for Jacksonville. Reason being it's not an A+ is because Trevor Lawrence wasn't my top quarterback in the draft. It was Zach Wilson, who went number 2. So when looking at the letter grades for these two top quarterbacks, Zach Wilson got an A+ from the Jets, and Trevor Lawrence, the Jags, got an A. Still think Trevor Lawrence will be a very successful NFL quarterback. I do not quite see him as a generational talent, but I see a guy with a very high floor due to being good at just about everything you need to be good at the quarterback position. He has a strong arm. He's very athletic. He can run, breakaway speed in the open field. Accuracy is there. He has some things to clean up at the next level. He's not as perfect of a prospect as I think many believe, but he's still going to be good, and he's deserving of this number 1 pick, especially when you consider the scheme he will be put in Jacksonville with Urban Meyer wanting to bring a collegey offense. I think Trevor Lawrence will be the guy to run it well. So I give Trevor Lawrence an A here. Zach Wilson's an A+. I think the difference for me between Wilson and Lawrence, first, he's the second pick, not the first. He's my number 1 quarterback. The reason I had Zach Wilson as the number 1 quarterback, he has those transferable skills from college to the NFL that teams are looking for in these quarterbacks nowadays. I'm talking about arm angles galore. I'm talking about the best arm in the draft. I'm talking about the second most accurate quarterback in the draft, only behind Mac Jones in my opinion. Good pocket presence. He's got leadership skills. He can scramble. He can run. He can extend plays very well. Zach Wilson has all it takes from a skill perspective to be a superstar. So that's why I give the Jets an A+ at number 2. Trey Lance at number 3, I give a B. I feel okay about this one. I think he's a good fit for what Kyle Shanahan wants to do, especially in a run-centric offense. I think that's going to be elaborate. That's going to be fun. That's going to be explosive. I question whether he was worth the trade, right? I took into account trade compensation with these grades. So with Trey Lance, 2 first-round picks, a lot to give up for a relatively uncertain prospect. I think there's a stat out there where he's thrown the least amount of passing attempts for a first-round quarterback, or even a quarterback coming into the draft, like ever. So there's questions there with Trey Lance, but he has very high upside with his absolute physical tools that are through the roof, with the arm strength, with the speed, with the size. I like Trey Lance. I personally ranked Mac Jones higher. I thought they should have taken Mac Jones, but I like the pick nonetheless. Now at number 4, Kyle Pitts. Kyle Pitts is an A. You could argue he's a generational talent at tight end. So then, Mitch, you're saying, why isn't he an A+? He's not an A+ because this isn't the biggest need for Atlanta, right? I don't think they necessarily needed a weapon on the outside or a tight end. They didn't need that, but they just took the best player, right? They would have been better off probably trading down, getting some defensive help, but they weren't able to do that, and they took the best player available. I like the pick. I can't disagree with the pick. You could argue he's the best player in the whole draft. You could. So for that, I'll give them an A. You have Jamar Chase. B plus here because I think you could go Penei Sewell, who I think a lot of people feel is a blue chip tackle. We'll get to him in a little bit here. He could have been the pick here, and I would have probably been a little bit higher on the Sewell to the Bengals pick. Although I do love Jamar Chase. I see Jamar Chase as like a slower Julio, which is still maybe a Hall of Fame talent, right? He can go up, he could snatch the football. He is very physical, big frame. I just think he's going to have a dynamic combo with Joe Burrow and Cincinnati. I'm excited to watch that go down for hopefully the next 10 to 15 seasons in Cincinnati with tons of success. But we do understand that we needed to protect Joe Burrow. They will do that later in this draft, but I would have probably went with the blue chip tackle. That's just my perspective. Still like the pick though, because he's the best receiver in this class. Then you have Jalen Waddle. This is the lowest of all the picks here out of the top 8 or so. Jalen Waddle, I had as my third receiver. So you can see why I'm a little bit down here. I like Devontae Smith more. I think he should have went to Miami if they were looking at wide receiver. But then you factor in that Penei Sewell. Again, a blue chip tackles on the board. Miami, to me, has one of, if not the worst offensive line in all of the NFL. And they still pick Jalen Waddle. And I don't think people understand, specifically Dolphins fans understand, that Will Fuller and Devontae Parker and even Preston Williams are good players. I would argue that Will Fuller and Devontae Parker are top 32 receivers, which would mean they're both number 1 receivers. So to me, receiver wasn't the biggest need on this roster. It was offensive line. So personally, if I was the GM, I would have picked Sewell here. Or if I were to go receiver, I would have picked Devontae Smith. Nonetheless, I think Waddle's a good player. So I didn't dock them like a C or a C minus. I gave him a B minus because Waddle can be an upper echelon receiver in this league. I just would have went in a different direction. Sewell then lands with the Lions right in their laps. They were pumped. I've never seen a team this pumped to get a left tackle in my life. But it happened for Detroit. Very happy for them. They got maybe, when it's all said and done, potentially the guy with the highest ceiling. He could go down as maybe one of the best left tackles of all time. That is the type of ceiling he possesses, and he has. So to get that player here, not even in the top 5, is very, very good for Detroit. So I give them an A+. He's a stud, and I think he's going to be a stud for a very long time. J.C. Horn, I'm okay with this pick. I personally wouldn't have gone with J.C. Horn at the cornerback position. He wasn't my top corner. In fact, he was my third corner. I liked a couple other guys a little bit more, but J.C. Horn does fit this system. He's a press cover corner with good size, great playmaking ability, and very good intelligence for the position. I think he's going to fit right in with Carolina. It was a need, so it checks a box there. So I like it. Obviously, we're going to differentiate with who we feel is number 1, number 2 at corner. I'm not judging it based on that. I'm judging it more based on the need. I like it. I don't love it. I think that's the best way to put it. Guys, make sure you do head over to Underdog Fantasy. I love Underdog Fantasy. It's the best way to play fantasy. Best ball style. Deposit right now. You get a free $25 if you deposit right now with Underdog Fantasy using the code BLV. Currently, they're running the biggest best ball tournament ever. Best Ball Mania 2. Again, guys, Underdog Fantasy. Download the app, use the code BLV, and you'll get a free $25 to join the biggest best ball tournament of all time. Sounds like a great deal to me. So head over to Underdog Fantasy, use that code BLV, and I'll see you there. Moving on to the next set of players, we have Patrick Surtain. I give a C+. Personally, I didn't feel like corner was that big of a need for Denver. This, to me, could have been a quarterback pick. Even though you brought in Teddy Bridgewater, this could have been your pick between Justin Fields and Mac Jones. Whoever you liked more, that's probably the direction I would have gone in if I was the general manager of the Denver Broncos. But they did not go in that direction. Instead, they maybe went with the player they felt best about. Now, I understand that there's going to be some contracts expiring in this secondary next year. But I like their starting trio at corner. right? I like Fuller. I like Callahan. I like Darby. From day one, Surtain might be the third or fourth best in this rotation. So it's going to take him some time to even become a starter. So to me, I dock it based on that. Although I think the player is solid. I had him personally ahead of JC Horn. They go back to back. I think he'll fit this system, Fangio's defense, quite well. I just didn't really understand the need, and I didn't really understand why they didn't go quarterback or even offensive line with this selection. Devontae Smith to me is an A+. Devontae Smith is an absolute stud. I love Devontae Smith. I think he was a top 5 maybe player in this entire class. Definitely top 10. And they get him here, my number 2 receiver in the class. And it was like a 1A, 1B with Jamar Chase. And that's why it's an A+. Even though they gave up something to get him, it was worth it at the end of the day, because I felt like the difference between the 3rd and the 4th receiver in this class was ginormous. So to just pay a little bit to get that player, I think was worth it. And I think Devontae Smith is going to be a legendary receiver for the Philadelphia Eagles. Justin Fields, A- here. Now, some people have it as an A+. There's a couple things here. So I'm actually not really even factoring in my personal take on Justin Fields, which is that I'm not the biggest Justin Fields guy. Like, I see more bust factor than I see high upside with Justin Fields. I really do. Because I think he has some things mechanically, throwing-wise, and from his perspective as a decision maker that I'm not in love with. And I'm actually afraid that the destination he landed in, Chicago, picked a quarterback like Mitchell Trubisky, who had a lot of the same issues that Justin Fields has coming to the NFL level. So I'm worried about that. But I didn't factor that in, because with quarterbacks, I always look at, is this your guy? If this is your guy, you go and get him. But because I'm not in love with the player as much as some other people, to give up a first-round pick, especially a first-round pick that could be top 10 next year, that is a lot to give up for any player. So I like the move. I like the boldness, but I can't give it a full A+ because you're risking stuff here majorly for this player. So I gave it an A-. Micah Parsons, B+. Now, some people hate this move. Some people love this move. I'm somewhere in between, I guess, maybe a little bit on the higher end, because I saw Dallas move back, gain another third-round pick to help their defense out on the defensive line, and get maybe the best defensive player in this entire draft, or maybe the guy with the highest upside on defense in the entire draft. So that being said, I love this move. I love this pick. Now, it wasn't their biggest need. Edge, D-line, corner, all bigger needs, maybe even safety. It was the least big need on their defense, right? But he's a baller, and you could argue that he could play a little edge, he could play a little linebacker. Leighton Vander Esch, we don't really know what's going on with that situation. And if you're just going to pick the best player, I think that was the best solution for Dallas. Rashawn Slater, B+ as well. Actually, I believe that Darisaw is the better tackle here, and that's kind of a hot take. But Slater I liked, and he was my 3rd tackle on the board. I could see him being a more effective guard. I'm a little worried about him at tackle, especially left tackle, which is probably where he's going to play for the Chargers. I think he'll be solid, don't get me wrong, and I like this move, and I give it a B+ because it fit a need. But I'm slightly worried about, more so than others, about him being a premier left tackle in this league. I think he might be better at right tackle, might be better at guard. Elijah Vera Tucker, B. Okay, because you had to trade up to get this player, you had to give things away for a guard or maybe a tackle or an offensive lineman just in general. You had to give up a pretty extensive piece here to move significantly in this draft when maybe you could have stayed where you were at and picked a decent lineman that wasn't too far off of this player. But I appreciate this move because I like what the Jets have done here and accomplished here by trying to protect Zach Wilson. It's very important, very fundamental. I could see why people would put this near the A's, but I'm going to stick with the B because of the trade, because I felt like a similar player would have been available where they picked later and they didn't have to trade up. But I understand the move, and that's why I give it a B. Mac Jones is an A+. Whether you don't like Mac Jones or you love Mac Jones as a prospect, you have to appreciate that New England didn't have to trade up to get him, right? Outside of Trevor Lawrence and the Jags and the Jets with Zach Wilson, who are the two worst teams in football and arguably both tanked to get their quarterbacks, the Patriots didn't have to tank. They didn't have to trade up, give away assets to get their guy. Chicago did, the Niners did. New England didn't. And to me, Mac Jones is the second or third best quarterback in this entire draft. He's the most accurate, and I would argue he actually maybe fits New England the best out of all of the five. I think it's him or Zach Wilson here. So Mac Jones is deadly accurate, great in the pocket with his feet and his ability to move within the pocket. Good arm, great leadership and intangibles, and man, I just think he's a great fit in New England. He is a Patriot. Zaven Collins, I give a B. I like the player a lot. I question the need. I thought corner was a bigger need. I thought possibly receiver was a bigger need. Maybe even, offensive line or safety. I don't know. I didn't really feel like linebacker was a huge need for them. But I like Zaven Collins because I think he's kind of a Dante Hightower mold type of linebacker where he could play a little edge, he could play a little linebacker. It frees up Isaiah Simmons to do some different type of things with his versatility on this defense. So I understand the selection if this was just your best player available, and that's probably why they made the pick. But I felt like maybe you could have traded back, got a little bit more picks for the rest of your roster, and then picked maybe a corner later on or a position of need. But I didn't really feel like this was a huge need. I just thought it was a solid player that they picked. Moving to the next page of players. We have Alex Leatherwood. I'm giving that a D, man. I thought this was a second round player. And again, the Raiders prove that they are willing to move up and just give ridiculous takes in the first round. I mean, do you understand how other teams value players? Like, I get it that you want to be the smartest guy in the room, but sometimes you have to realize that you could get this guy a lot later and get a lot more picks to help your bad roster get better. So this was the worst pick of the first round, and it's not even a question. Not even because I'm going to hate on the player. Like, it's not about that. It's about the value here. It just doesn't make sense. Jalen Phillips, A. Best edge player in this draft. You could argue A+ if he didn't have the injury issues. He could be the best defensive player in this entire draft. I wouldn't be shocked by that. Best pure pass rusher. Brian Flores will get the best out of him, plus he stays in Miami, which I think is beneficial to Jalen Phillips. So we have Davis with Washington. I give it a B. I'm okay with it. They needed a linebacker. I just don't love Davis. I like him. I actually felt like there was a better linebacker who went way later in the draft that they could have potentially got. Okay, so I understand it. He's a scheme fit. I just don't see him as a huge difference maker. I think he'll be a solid starter. I just never see him being a Pro Bowl, an All-Pro. I don't see the upside. I see a starting caliber player, safe pick, but nothing special. So that's why it's like not sexy to me. It's a B. It's a good, okay, you fit a need, but it's not going to like wow me or anything. Kadarius Toney is an A for the Giants. Here's why. I love Kadarius Toney as a player. I would agree that he was the fourth or fifth best receiver in this class, and they got him as the fourth receiver in this draft. So that's totally cool. He's one of the most elusive football players I've ever seen in my life. He makes people miss silly. I mean, Barry Sanders level silly, okay? So he, with the ball in his hands, is ridiculous. And I think he's going to turn into an excellent slot receiver, great route runner. So I like the player. But to get a first round pick next year, I mean, that's just incredible. That value is amazing. So including the trade value, this is one of the best moves, in my opinion, in the entire draft. So that's just how I feel. Kwity Paye, B+. This was a need pick. I think Paye is a solid player. I'm not in love with the player, but I like him. I think this was good value. It checks all the boxes. If I was a little bit higher on the player, I'd say it's an A or an A+, but he's just good to me. I'm not in love, and I think it does fit a need. And I was certainly preaching to you guys that I think the Colts need to upgrade their edge position, and they certainly have in this draft. Caleb Farley is an A. I almost did an A+, but because of his injury history and because of the downside that exists, I couldn't give an A+. I know some people think this is like a bad pick because they thought he might be available later or the injury was too much risk. I'm willing to take this risk on a player that could have been picked in the top 5, maybe the top 10 if he were healthy and if he had more tape. But like, this guy's the best corner in the draft to me. He is a maybe potential shutdown corner on an island, man-to-man coverage. That's what exists with Caleb Farley here. So this was their biggest need on defense. They addressed it. Love the pick. Christian Darrisaw was maybe one of the best moves overall by any team. Minnesota was able to get extra picks, trade back, and still get my number 2 tackle in the entire class. I can't say anything more than that. They've upgraded their offensive line, their biggest position of need, tackle, and it's just everything across the board. Need, love the player, they got compensation, value, all of it. Najee Harris, I don't like picking running backs in the first round. It's just that simple, guys. It's just not worth it. At the end of the day, when you could get so many explosive, great runners. When you look at the NFL today, look at the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th rounders that have really exploded onto the scene. When you look at the top 10 running backs in the NFL today, about 7 or 8 of them weren't drafted in the first round. So, and I'm not actually that high on Harris. He was my number 2 running back, not my number 1, right? I thought Etienne was actually the better back because of his pure speed. Harris, I do question that game-breaking ability. I think he's a solid fit. He's definitely pro-ready. He'll catch the football. He can block a little bit. He can run between the tackles. Good player. But to take a running back when you need offensive linemen badly, and even some players on defense, like maybe corner, maybe edge, I just don't really get it. I just don't get the running back thing in the first round. That's just me. Then we have the final picks of the first round. Travis Etienne. This one shocked me. Okay, as I said, he's my number 1 running back, but I gotta give it a D. You have a good running back who ran for 4.5 yards per carry on a bad team and 1,000 yards. And he was cheap, didn't cost you anything. I think he was a 7th rounder or undrafted, wasn't he? Robinson. Etienne is a nice player. He's not a generational running back, so that excuse is out the window. Like, it makes absolutely no sense. And then the comments after the pick that Carlos Hyde will be involved in the backfield and he'll barely touch the ball as a 3rd down back. Just talk about a waste of a pick on a team that really needs to be rebuilding in Jacksonville. Greg Newsome, B-. Greg Newsome, I'm okay with him. I actually am not that in love with him as a corner. Like, I wouldn't even maybe put him in my top 5 corners in this entire draft. I think he's probably outside of it, so that's why it's only a B-. I get the pick, though. I think they definitely increased depth, if not got a starter as a cornerback 2 on their roster. So that's solid for Cleveland. And when you're looking to compete with the Bills and the Chiefs in the AFC, you certainly need corners who can cover. And if Newsome is their guy, they felt he fit, and he's more of a zone corner, so it's a good fit in terms of the scheme. I understand it, but I'm going to give it a B- just because I'm not super high on the player. Rashad Bateman, B. I think he's a good receiver. Not sure about the upside of being a great receiver here. He was probably the only receiver that had that profile of being a perimeter size guy. There's questions with him to me about him being able to separate and get open consistently. And I thought they needed a guy like that for Lamar, but Bateman is a position of need. I have to be happy because I've been wanting them to get a receiver for so long. They felt Bateman was the guy. So I'm at least going to give them a B here, if not better, because they finally addressed this massive need on their roster. Peyton Turner, B-. I thought he would be available in the second round. I think he's a good player. I think he's better than a lot of people think. And I was just surprised he went in the first round. I think he has good versatility, inside, outside player, good power. But I felt he could go in the second round. And then at the same time, there was other needs here. Cornerback was a way bigger need for the Saints. Even linebacker was a bigger need, even receiver. So it was the fourth or fifth need on the table here. And they went with the fourth or fifth need with a player that I felt they could have gotten later. Then you have Eric Stokes, C+. He was nowhere close to the top corner on the board for me personally. Maybe other people felt differently. I didn't think he was a first rounder. So I question the pick massively. I think they could have gone receiver here. I think they could have gone offensive line here. I think they could have gone a lot of different directions. They were just overall better players on the board, in my opinion, and even at the same position. So Green Bay, again, just whiffs on a first-round pick. Gregory Rousseau, B-. I could see the upside here. I think he fits the system well, so I like it. I think there's inconsistencies with him. He is not a great run defender. He overall, with his college career being a bit inconsistent in terms of what we know about him, it's really a risky pick, but it does have a lot of high upside, so I could see it going either way. Jason Away, I gave him an A-. I like this player. I know he didn't have any sacks, and everyone's going to bring that up, but he was arguably the best edge run defender in this class. He was also arguably the best athlete at this position, and I think that's a perfect fit for Baltimore. What they do with his length and his athletic ability to blitz him off the edge, to be able to set the edge, those are all things fundamental to Baltimore's scheme. I think he fits greatly, and he was mocked there by everybody for a reason. I think it was a great pick. And the final pick in the first round of the 2021 NFL Draft, my final grade, Joe Tryon, B+. I did not know much about this player until he was picked. I'll be truthful about that. Although I saw he was being mocked in the first round, I thought I saw him maybe going to the Jets, maybe going to the Colts. I wasn't too familiar. I dug in, did my research, and he looks a lot like a Shaq Barrett type of guy to me. And he seems to fit the size profile, the speed profile. He's a very good pure pass rusher, has the ability to bend around the corner. I could see him being a steal. The Bucs have had really, really good picks, in the last few years, especially defensively. And I think this is another one for their front seven. He's going to be their third edge rusher. I felt it was actually their biggest need on their roster to get that third edge rusher to help out JPP, to help out Shaq. And he has a lot of skills and a lot of just overall, he looks like Shaq Barrett. He fits this defense well, and I think he'll help in the rotation for this defense. So those are the first round NFL draft grades for 2021. It's Mitch of TheBottomLineView. Thanks for watching my first round NFL draft grades. Don't forget to check out the rest of my NFL draft content, including my day 2 thoughts for my favorite picks in the second and the third round. It's Mitch of TheBottomLineView. Thanks for watching. Peace.